Hildy here. I'm gonna beat dead horses in this one. But you know, somebody needs to hear it maybe, or might do some good. I just keep seeing the same thing on the internet. People that should know better. People that are, I would describe as paleoconservatives, younger veterans, gun rights advocates, patriots. There's a lot of them are still buying the narratives about Ukraine. They think that plucky little farmer underdog is holding off the evil empire. They're still stuck in that way of thinking. And new information doesn't seem to work on them. They still think Russia is an evil communist country. And they're trying to take over the world and put the Soviet Union back together. There's been books written like that. And they sold lots of copies. Hey. I don't know, it's just frustrating because I live there and I know what it's like. Much nicer infrastructure than the U.S. And from what I see, a much better plan that they actually execute for the future instead of just letting corporations ruin everything and continue to collect short-term profits at the expense of the public weal. In the U.S., we have Agenda 21 and 26 and 2030 or whatever the hell they have now, where they're wanting to get everybody out of the country and in population centers, and they want everybody chipped and regulated and living in smart cities with the basic income. They're not doing that in Russia. They're doing it here. I mean, they have had some success. I was in North Dakota when they started plowing up the back roads out in the country, the access roads to the farms and the small towns out there. They didn't just neglect them. They actually plowed them up so you can't use them anymore. So, well, if you're going to live out here, you're going to have to find your own way in and out. The state isn't going to help you anymore. What are your tax dollars for? Oh, bailing out corporations, that's right. But they've got their people in village boards and town meetings and county directors and everything else, and they train them how to deal with opposition, how to isolate people that are resisting what they're trying to do. And it's everywhere. They're de-scoping things. They're collapsing infrastructure. Now in Russia, I've said this before, I'm going down the new motorways in Crimea into Moscow. It's beautiful. I mean, brand new everything. And they don't just put overpasses and retaining walls. They put mosaics on them. Really long-term stuff. It's not just a painting. It's a freaking mosaic of ceramics, of beautiful pictures and stuff on this stuff. They decorate it. They landscape it. And out in the middle of nowhere, again and again and again, you have these pedestrian causeways over the interstate. Those cost a lot. Several flights of stairs, a bridge going across all four lanes, and then several flights of stairs and bus stops. And there's nothing out there. And sound deadening walls with glass in them so you can see through them. I mean, they're spending some serious money on what? They plan on putting villages out there. The vision is to have small farming villages everywhere. While in the U.S., they're getting people out of the country and put them in cities where they'll be dependent, be having to eat, Monsanto nutrition loaf grown in an automated Monsanto factory, or maybe Soylent Grain. I'd really rather be there. That's my home. This isn't. But circumstances, well, what can you do? But anyway, people watch their movies, they watch their shows, they're in the American Zeitgeist where Russia's just a big gas station. They just have gas and they waste it because they have no infrastructure and they just have old broken Soviet stuff and they live in moldy concrete boxes and they all drink vodka and have AIDS. That's what a lot of Americans think. It's just bigotry. It's the stupidest bigotry that you'd ever seen. It's like, there's a big old greasy Russian sweating all over my vegetables at the grocery store. You know, really, seriously, they really think that way. You can't get them out of it. It's an amazing thing. Especially these people that should know better. These veterans and these gun rights advocates. They're having all kinds of stuff on some of their sites. I'm not going to share links with them. You can find them easy enough. Some of them are pretty popular sites, and they seem like nice guys. They seem like they're pretty fun, but they're waving their little blue and yellow murder puppet flags around. And, well, look at this M14. Ain't it a beauty? It's off to Ukraine to finally get to kill Russians. These idiots even knew what they were talking about, if they even knew what they were saying. The media is saying, well, they don't know what they're doing. They've been doing it through this whole war. Ukraine's winning anytime, just a couple more months. Yeah, winning. They expected them to fight the war like the United States would. That would have been to bomb the living dog crap out of Kyiv for months and destroyed everything and terrorized the population and destroyed all the infrastructure and then go in with ground troops. They didn't do that. Well, they must be crazy. Those stupid Russians don't know how to fight a war. Oh, they're fighting it and they know how. They'd roll up on Kyiv like they were going to take it and then stop. They'd roll up on Kharkov like they were going to take it and then they'd stop. And then they'd fight them in the south. The important targets. Azovstal, Mariupol. And then they formed a lot of little cauldrons in the fortified areas in the Donbass, where the Kyiv has been in the Donbass, the Ukrainian army, and they've dug in. They've built permanent fortifications all over the place. Russians roll in there, it's going to cost a lot. They could take it easy, but it would cost a lot. They don't like spending lives unnecessarily. They're very patient. This is my round version of Ukraine because I don't have time to draw an accurate map. Oh, here's Crimea. This is the Donbass, Lugansk and Donetsk, Mariupol down here, Odessa, the Transnistria, Kyiv, Kharkov, Sumy. They pushed in toward these places and stopped. Now, why would they do that? In America, and all the armchair generals are saying, well, they just can't take it. And then they pushed in here and took Mariupol. Right now, all these fortified areas, they're back and forth, back and forth. The Russians control areas. The Ukrainians rush in. What do the Russians do? Do they fight them and grind away at each other and have a horrible battle? No. They fall back and let them have it. Oh, the Russians are retreating. They've been defeated. Ukraine's taking new ground. You see, the thing is, they've got them pinned by sitting here. They got people they can't. Ukraine cannot remove military from these areas because the Russians are sitting there. They have to stay there and wait for an attack to defend it. What they have to go into here is limited. The Russians know what their numbers are. They haven't got enough to go in and hold it. They've got enough to come blasting in to this big empty area where Russia left. They weren't fleeing, they were retreating. And when they flee in, or the Ukrainians go in, then the Russians can cut their supply lines and surround them. It's called a cauldron. They've done it again and again. The Donetsk and Lugansk republics did it again and again and again to the Kyiv coup army for the last 8 years. They did it 9 times. They made 9 cauldrons and just obliterated them. The last one is when NATO countries called for Minsk, because they had a lot of advisors and mercenaries in there, probably some special forces from the U.S. and Great Britain. They didn't want to see them obliterated. They would have been. So they called truce, let's have the Minsk agreements, and they ignored the Minsk agreements. That's what the West has been doing. We make all these treaties and these agreements and then just violate the crap out of them and lie about it for as long as we can to keep pounding away on you and hope that you'll have a regime change. That's not going to happen. That's wishful thinking. I'll use a different color. This is fun, isn't it? I use my blue marker. Class. I'll explain a cauldron more closely. Say this is the line. This is territory held by Russia. Ukrainians come in. They break through and go into it. So then you have this. They rush in. The Russians know what their numbers are. They don't have enough to hold this. What happens is they pound this and you end up with a cauldron controlled here. And then they could set up artillery and just pound away at them all day long. That's what they've been doing. Why wouldn't they? Why waste lives? But when they fall back and let them have it, Ukraine's gaining ground. You hear it over and over and over again, don't you? It's a tactic. Why can't Americans think tactically? They jump into propaganda mode and they jump into little just so stories and hero stories and plucky little Ukrainian farmers towing off the Russian tank with his tractor. It's a joke. It's a circus. Here recently, we've had, what? Daria Dugina, murdered, terrorist car bomb, yeah? We have the Nord Stream international infrastructure destroyed by a sneaky little drone bomb or divers. Now we have the Crimean Bridge attacked. This is another thing. Why didn't Russia do anything? And we have people that are supposedly on, pro-Russian that are saying, well, Putin's really done it now. He's not doing anything. He must be on their side. I see this, too. Usually when you dig a little bit, you find butthurt communists that think they're disappointed that the People's Republics aren't really what they think of as classical communists. And then they're disappointed that they didn't rebuild the Soviet Union. And they're just waiting for an opportunity to cause division. And they try to do that. Now, Putin's really a New World Order guy. He's just a stooge for Klaus Schwab. This is all just a show. You know how stupid you gotta be to believe that? Yeah, they're spending all this money to put on a show for you. That means they're pretty powerful. If they're that powerful, why have the show? Come on. I've said this before, but that's another thing I keep seeing again and again going through on the internets. Is it worth paying attention to? I don't know. I've seen some pretty smart people and intelligent people that seem like they're pretty good folks that buy into it. I'm making this mainly for me to share on certain sites, but I never get any response from them. There's some weird vested interest in this. I think it's psychological, maybe spiritual, I don't know. What's another one? He doesn't do enough. He's going to get taken down because of that, because the people are really angry because he won't act. They know what he's doing, and they're patient too. Of course, there's factions. Or the U.S. seems to think they're going to have regime change because everybody's tired of the war, and the Russians are fleeing mobilization like it's a draft, and they're all running away. Well, 70,000 Russians left. Well, a lot of them going on vacation, I guess, maybe. There are people that don't like the war and they believe Western media. They think Russian media lies and Western media is the truth. It's hard to comprehend. There's not a majority by any stretch of the imagination. A very small percentage of Russians do that, and they're concentrated in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And they're like our Western extreme pseudo-left that we have here. Well, I'm going to Canada because Trump got elected. Yeah, but they never go. All these celebrities and important people and busybodies and whatnot are making these statements, and they are actually leaving because they have some money and they can go. They're acting like they're scared of the mobilization. They're not going to be mobilized. They're only mobilizing reserves. They're Army reserves. It's like we have a reserve Army National Guard in the U.S. When they mobilize them, is that going out in the street and grabbing people and throw them at the front? That's what's being portrayed of it is in the U.S. It's not what's happening at all. And these people leaving, oh, they're just putting on a show. A lot of them are in organizations that get their orders from the other side, from the UN or the NATO. Certain media people that are living in Russia and have Russian citizenships, but don't really consider themselves to be Russians. They're stateless cosmopolitans. Real big media people. They orchestrate this stuff to shape opinions. That's what it is. It's an opinion shaping project. It's PR. And it's put in the media like, well, Putin's not going to be able to hang on to power much longer now. Look at this. The vast majority of Russians are patriots, and there's huge numbers of volunteers, way more than the amount of people leaving. The volunteers and the newly mobilized ones go to the back of the line, and the ones that have been doing logistics in the back go to the front. So it's not throwing untrained people into the mix. It's just stupid. If you believe this stuff, then it's because of your prejudice and because your bigotry and what you think of Russians, because of the movies that you've watched. I mean, that's what it all boils down to. What else? Russia's going to a war economy. They've already done a lot of it. Very low key. They've already replaced a lot of the stuff that sanctions are on and make it themselves now, which is good. They're more independent, less dependent on, very little, if any, dependence left on the globalist corporations. Call them New World Orderist. I'm putting some links in here that people that are full-timers and able to do a lot better research than I am, and they're both, I'm putting two links, they're both a lot more articulate than I am too, and they have made some very succinct statements. They're kind of longish, but they're worth a listen to. It explains all this stuff. I'm gonna put 3 because there's a good interview I went on here too with a nice Polish lady. Anyway, that's enough for this one. Just a little information, a few explanations. I'm sure I forgot some things. But I'll go back to doing some more interesting stuff for the next few videos, because I think something big's going to happen pretty soon, within the next month anyway, I'm pretty sure. So we'll do some more about psychology and spirituality and religion. Some of you just seem to like that, and I like talking about it. So we'll do that next time. Until something else big happens. Uncle Bill D signing out.